Hey, and what is going on, everybody? It is Zero here. We're going to be talking a little bit about what went down at Blizzcon concerning Diablo. I just finished up perusing the forums a little bit, and a lot of people are angry. And even in-game, when BlizzCon was going on, so much hate coming out of the different chats and communities over what Blizzard announced for Diablo at BlizzCon. And at first I was a little disappointed with all the announcements that were coming out. And as I took a minute, sat back, and thought about it, I became less disappointed and more excited. And I want to go over some of the changes that have been announced and just talk a little bit about my feelings about those and why we shouldn't, as a community, be so hateful towards Blizzard and the changes they're making, and so disappointed, because it's nonsense to be disappointed. So here on Diablo Fans, we'll just go over some of this stuff that they have here. There will be 2 new zones. Great, 2 new free zones, more places to run around and do bounties and explore. Great, there's nothing wrong with that. They're free. What's to complain about? 2 new free zones, content being added to the game for free. Seasons will be coming to consoles. We don't care about that. That's just going to be a mess, let's face it. There's so much hacking and stuff going on consoles that this is very likely to be a mess when it goes live. Even with having to start new characters, I'm sure that they're going to find a way to alter their saves. I'm sure of it. Challenge rifts seem really, really cool. It kind of, in a way, allows the community to really push the way the game is played, because the challenge rift builds get pulled straight out of the community without us knowing who's going to get, whose build will be pulled from the community. So that should be interesting, and it'll kind of allow a lot of people that don't play certain builds or certain classes to kind of experience those maybe for the first time, and maybe get interested in playing classes and builds that they've never played before. I think that's a cool feature that's coming. It's not like mind-boggling, but it's cool, and it will give us another way of obtaining bounty bags, because at a certain point, us as players have to get sick of doing bounties. We do them so much that after a while we just wish that, or you have to wish that there be a better way to get bounty bags, or a different way to get bounty bags. So this will introduce another way to get bounty bags, which I think is great. We'll be getting some quality of life changes. This is the big stuff for me. An equipment build manager and a crafting material interface. So the equipment build manager, something I thought was pretty funny, and I thought this was part of Blizzard's problem at BlizzCon concerning Diablo 3, is that they presented everything really poorly in terms of Diablo 3, I thought anyway. When they started talking about the build manager, I mean, they were touting it like it's like the greatest thing ever, this like revolutionary thing, but it's not. I mean, this kind of thing has been in World of Warcraft like forever, right? So I mean, it's just like, let's face it, it's something that's been in other ARPGs forever, and the fact that it hasn't been in Diablo until whenever it comes out is just kind of ridiculous. But it is a quality of life change, and I'm happy it's coming. It's something that I've wanted forever, and it's always been my biggest complaint about the game, is that I can't just have preset things set up and change over my build with a click of a button. More about the equipment manager, 5 full loadouts, very cool. Paragon points will not be saved because having acquired new ones after same. So like basically, if you're not Paragon 800, you're still gonna have to change your Paragon points. The armory will always be used at the highest level gems, normal and legendary. Removing gems will no longer cost money. That's a good thing, because we do that all the freaking time. But it doesn't really matter. Once you get to a certain point, the money doesn't matter, because you have so much of it, you're never gonna run out. The anniversary dungeon is super cool, man. This Diablo 1 themed anniversary dungeon, where like the graphics are downgraded, the movement's downgraded, and it's going to play like Diablo 1, but with Diablo 3 classes and movesets. I think it's super cool, and there's going to be awesome rewards in it, including a new legendary gem that, could quite possibly end up being a very powerful gem in the right builds, the way I see it anyway. The only kind of complaint I have about it is that it's not a permanent thing. It'll only be accessible 1 month out of the year every year, and I kind of think that's a bummer, because I think it'll really introduce something into the game that will really mix things up in terms of the gameplay. You know, when you start getting burnt out on doing rifts or the new challenge rifts or bounties, and you just really want to mix things up and you know, kind of do something different, you could have this anniversary dungeon. I feel like it should be in the game all the time. Like, it shouldn't be a 1 month out of the year thing. That being said, I'm glad they've done something like this, even though it's only 1 month out of the year. I think it really should, though, be in the game all the time. Necromancer, of course, is like the big news. Finally getting a Necromancer, and people are all like, either like super hype for Necromancer or super pissed off. Oh, you know, you hear it often. People just go on and on about how all the changes they introduced to Diablo 3 are just ripped right out of Diablo 2 and blah, 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 and Diablo 2 is so much better, you know, is what people tend to say. And it's like, well, you love Diablo 2 so much. Shouldn't you be happy that they're taking things out of Diablo 2 and putting them in Diablo 3? Like, shouldn't that make you happy that Diablo 3 is becoming more like Diablo 2? Isn't that what you want? You just want Diablo 2 with nicer graphics, obviously. I think a lot of people will play the crap out of this the moment it comes out. I, for one, definitely will, because I love anything to do with pets in Diablo. So I'll definitely be checking it out. There's really not much you can say about the Crusader right now, or not the Crusader. I'm playing Crusader right now. Not much you can say about Necromancer right now, because, I mean, we don't really know that much about what's going on with him. So, I mean, it's great. A new class to play as. It'll bring more variety to the gameplay in Diablo 3. There's nothing wrong with that, right? That's going to be part of a paid pack, and you're going to get other things other than Necromancer. You're going to get 2 more stash tabs. You're going to get a pet. You're going to get some banner, some sigil, and who knows, maybe even more. I mean, they haven't really talked too much about what's... Like, they're probably holding some stuff close to their chest about other things that will be in the Rise of the Necromancer pack, right? Especially depending on what kind of price point they want to go for. If they want to go for over $10, they're going to have to give a little bit more than just another character, I feel. The Dev Talk and Q&A panel was really bad at BlizzCon. This is, again, I mentioned earlier that they did a really poor job of showing and talking about what they had. It was bad. And then to make matters worse, the people that got up and asked questions during the Q&A panel were just useless. Like, the questions they asked were just dumb. Like, they really... Like, how come nobody ever gets up at these things and asks, like, really important, interesting questions? You know? Like, why doesn't someone get up there and say, how come you guys keep freaking nerfing our ability to crowd control mobs or Rift Guardians or bosses? Like, this is a big issue in the game. Why even have these skills in the game if we can't utilize them against a Rift Guardian? You know, why doesn't someone get up and say, why can't I freeze a Guardian more than freaking 2 or 3 times? It's nonsense. What's the point of having a freezing or stunning ability if it's not going to work on the Guardian, right? Nobody gets up and asks that kind of question. Instead, people get up and say, what type of weapons is the Necromancer going to use? What's his main type of weapon going to be? Well, that's interesting, because before the Q&A even happened, the last Q&A even happened, a number of people from Blizzard already said, well, he's going to use a Sith or a Scythe, or however you want to say it. So this information that's already out there, and you're getting up and asking that question again after it's already been answered numerous times on different streamers' live streams from BlizzCon and just other places. Just ask the question you already know the answer to. Weird, right? Isn't that weird? What else do we got? I mean, there wasn't really that much more talked about, really. I mean, realistically speaking. But the point I'm trying to make is like why people are so angry about what was announced, and they're not doing enough to Diablo, and the game is dead, give us Diablo 4, and blah 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 blah. I for one do not want Diablo 4 yet. I'm not ready for it. I've invested a lot of time into Diablo 3. Why do I all of a sudden want to jump into Diablo 4, you know, and lose that huge investment in my characters and my progression? I don't want that to happen. I'm totally content to just keep playing Diablo 3 as long as they keep introducing more content to the game, which they are. It might not be huge, massive amounts of content, but they're still introducing new content to the game on a fairly regular basis. And let's not forget that they add new legendaries like every season, right? And let's also not forget that this is a sub-free game. We don't pay a subscription fee for Diablo 3, right? I've seen a number of people compare the content that Diablo 3 gets versus the content that World of Warcraft gets, which to me is very crazy. They also compare it to Heroes of the Storm or Hearthstone, which is also crazy. So in the case of Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm, these are totally free-to-play games. You don't have to purchase them at all. The difference, however, is that they have a ridiculous amount of microtransactions in them, and this is the driving force behind those games. Blizzard makes a ridiculous amount of money from these microtransactions, right? So of course they are going to get a steady stream of content added to the game, and large amounts of content when the content is added, because the game is constantly bringing in a stream of revenue. So it's only a good business model to continue to update those games with large-scale content, right? Whereas Diablo doesn't have a steady stream of revenue coming in for Blizzard. And yet they continue to offer new free content to the game. This is a good thing. If you try to make the comparison, again, from Diablo to World of Warcraft, which on a gameplay standpoint you really cannot compare the two, but for the sake of a business standpoint for Blizzard, of course they're going to constantly update World of Warcraft with huge amounts of content. It's World of Warcraft. How many millions upon millions of dollars has World of Warcraft made for Blizzard, and continues to make them every day? They're constantly making money on World of Warcraft. Of course, it's going to get huge content updates and patches and expansions. It is their flagship game. It makes them tons of money. They're going to constantly update it. So you have to look at it from that standpoint. Would you be willing to pay a subscription fee for Diablo 3 if it meant getting the type of updates that, say, World of Warcraft gets? I would be willing to, but I'm perfectly happy getting the content updates that I'm getting and not having to pay a subscription fee. So I think what people should really take away from BlizzCon in terms of Diablo 3, not those other games, is that Blizzard, even though it's on a much slower pace than World of Warcraft, Heroes of the Storm, Hearthstone, is still committed to supporting Diablo 3 and growing and building upon that game and making it better with every content and patch. So we shouldn't be angry. We should just be happy with what we're getting. The fact that we're getting any content updates at all is a good thing, because Blizzard doesn't have to continue to update Diablo 3. It doesn't make them the kind of money that those other games make. They make money off Diablo 3 when someone buys a new copy of it, or someone buys Reaper of Souls expansion. That's when they make their money, and they make money off merchandise for Diablo 3. They were making money when the auction house was around, they were making a ton of money off of it. And that's when, realistically, they should have been pumping out expansions and content, is when the auction house was still going, they were making tons of money. That would have been the right time, right? If you were to see microtransactions introduced into Diablo 3 worldwide, then you would probably, I'm willing to bet, start seeing a very large amount of content updates start coming out and expansions. But for whatever reason, they're not into doing the microtransactions. I know they were testing them in the Asian market. I don't know if it's still in the Asian market or not. But it is what it is. We keep getting free content updates, you know, and occasionally we're going to get some sort of paid content update. And that's what's happening with the Necromancer. It's only the second paid content update since the game came out. And yet we've had a ton of content update, quality of life updates, and legendary updates to the game without having to pay any extra money. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's a good thing, don't you? Anyway, that's my thoughts on BlizzCon. Let me know what your thoughts on BlizzCon are. I really just think that we should be happy to be getting anything at all. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. Like, comment, subscribe. Later.